Nebraska. He's a U.S. Air Force combat veteran who retired as a brigadier general and is now in the House representing Nebraska and on the House Armed Services Committee. Congressman, Trump is essentially saying that now the strategy is, giving Iran the old talk to the hand treatment. What do you make of this? Is this what you would advise him to do?
I think this is a better strategy than what we have had. The blockade is probably the easier thing for us to enforce. Right now, we've been able to choke almost all of the traffic going in and out of Iran. That's good. Their economy is really struggling. It's going to really weaken the regime. However, I would say that Iran had been fairly effective up until now, shutting off about 90% of the flow of traffic. But we're starting to see more traffic get in and out of there, and that's a good thing. The problem, I think, with the president, early in this fight, he overpromised. It's going to be a quick fight. And then he tried to go it alone without trying to bring in Democrats or trying to involve Congress. And you can't fight a war in a partisan manner. It's got to be a bipartisan fight. And he should have anticipated more of a longer term fight. And I really think this is handicapping him now because the Democrats do not want to work with the president on this. And this needs to be a bipartisan effort. I have to remind folks, Iran has killed 1,000 Americans. They were the leading exporter of terror. They had 1,000 ballistic missiles. They were trying to produce a nuclear weapon. Some action had to be taken, if not with this president, maybe previous presidents. But this could not be allowed to continue like this. But I think the president is onto a strategy of blockade. I also recommend say less. There should be fewer people talking on this because there's contradictory messages going out there. Speak softly, but carry a big stick.
So, as I don't need to tell you, even though you're not running for re-election, the war is very unpopular. It is weighing heavily on whether or not many of your colleagues are going to be re-elected in the fall. Barrett Marson is a Republican strategist in Arizona. He told CNN, quote, "There is one person in this country who doesn't care about gas prices, just one. And unfortunately, that one person kind of controls our fate," unquote. At some point, do you think Republicans are going to be forced to really distance themselves from Trump, given how unpopular both he and the war and the ensuing high gas prices are?
Well, there's some reasons why this war is unpopular. I'd like to address that first. First, he didn't try to bring Democrats on board at all. And you cannot fight a war in a partisan manner. Ronald Reagan would have Tip O'Neill over, and they would try to come up with a bipartisan thing. I do believe there would be Democrats would have been more supportive if the president made an effort, because Iran was the leading exporter of terror. They killed 1,000 Americans. They had those deadly roadside bombs in Iraq that killed over 600 Americans, for example. So the case was there, but the president tried to go it alone. And then it was going to be a quick fight. We're going to make a deal tomorrow. We're going to make a deal next week. A deal's imminent. I think these things have undermined his effort. But we have to go back. What do we need to do now? If we stop this now, Iran wins.
Yeah.
And Iran could still produce a nuclear weapon. Maybe not as soon as it could have, but with China's or Russia's help or North Korea's help, they can rebuild this capability. And they will still be the leading exporter of terror. So I think the president has to keep this blockade on and find he's got to, in the end, he's got to prevail in this fight. Because if he doesn't, we're going to have a worse threat on our hands down the road. But he's sort of put us in a spot where he's backed into a corner with this being an unpopular war. And it goes back from the beginning. This had to be a bipartisan effort, not a one-man band. Yeah. That's what it became.
In 2024, Republicans hammered Democrats for being out of touch over the cost of living on affordability issues, and it worked. Republicans control the House, the Senate, the White House. So now that Trump is getting hammered over the affordability issue, why are so many Republicans still willing to stay loyal to Trump at the risk of meeting the same fate as 2024 Democrats who were defeated?
Well, it's a very good question, Jake. I am generally supportive of Iran because I think it's the right thing for the long-term future of our country. I don't agree with all of the tactical steps that were taken, but there are things the president can do for affordability. And first of all, we should be honest. There is a problem here. We have to also be candid. It dates back to when it was 9% inflation under Joe Biden. And we've never recovered, even though the inflation rate went back down under Joe Biden towards the end of his presidency. The inflation now still is around 3.5%, faster than wage growth. And so the American citizen going to the supermarket, going to the gas station, paying for everyday bills, they have less spending power today. We have to say, we have to acknowledge this. It's true.
Hmm.
But there are some things the president could do. I think we, as Republicans, we should acknowledge tariffs are not working. I've been one of the Republicans speaking up, saying tariffs have added costs to our everyday goods. Global tariff is a tax on the American consumer. So I think there are things that we could do to help bring down costs, separate from the Iran fight here. And I would encourage the president to engage on that.
Yeah.
It's hard to do tariffs against individual countries, but global tariffs are not a wise economic policy.
Let me ask you, as long as I have you, because you're a veteran, some family members of crew members aboard the USS Lincoln have been warning about terrible conditions on board, horrible morale amid their long deployment. President Trump's response to this reporting has been that it's not true that families are complaining, that the deployment's not nearly long enough. What have you thought of his and Secretary Hegseth's response to this news story?
I wish you wouldn't have said that the deployment wasn't long enough. There should be some empathy here, and also a thank you to the servicemen that are out there. They were out there for about 10 and a half months. That's what it's going to be when it's all said and done. And one of the issues with this aircraft carrier was they didn't have port calls or the ability to resupply as much on this deployment. So this was a tougher than normal deployment for the Navy and for an aircraft carrier. And we should acknowledge that. And by the way, they were effective. 92% of the Iranian Navy is gone. 200 drones were shot down by the Navy. So they've done some extraordinary good work. We should praise them for it. But I would also point out that we've had long deployments on aircraft carriers since World War II. In fact, I was on an aircraft carrier as an Air Force guy, and we also had morale problems then. We had a couple of suicides in 1996 when I was on the USS Carl Vinson. So some of the stuff is not abnormal, and we'll see some of it in the future. When I was in Iraq, Army soldiers and Marines were out there for 18 months.
Yeah.
And so this is not very unusual, but that said, we should say we understand this is hard on families. You got young marriages, and they're out there for 10 and a half months. Very hard on young marriages. It's hard on old marriages. I've been married 42 years. You have some people are new dads or new moms, and they're away from their kids that long. We should acknowledge that it's hard, but also thank them. They were very effective. They did a great job.
Republican Congressman Don Bacon, appreciate your time. And as always, sir, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
In our politics lead, fresh off invoking Trump